One of the things that we need to talk more about is whether or not the OpenAI claim that test time inference has a scaling law is true. I'm going to unpack that statement. So, roughly speaking, the scaling law that OpenAI is claiming they've unlocked is that if you take more time to think about the problem, if you run parallel paths with your AI system and you come back, you're going to have a smarter answer if you can select the best response. And the reason why we need to talk about whether that scales or not is because we have our first legitimately different competitor outside the big model maker set. That's called DeepSeek. It came out of China, and it is specifically designed to scale intelligence through test time inference. And what I mean by that is when you chat, it takes extra time to respond. Now, I obviously went and immediately tried it because I'm me. And I wanted to give it a problem that I thought would be out of left field or an interesting challenge. And I did not want to give it a problem that would align with what I was seeing as reported as good by the model. I want to give it something different to test new capabilities. So DeepSeek was actually reported as being very, very good at mathematical and scientific problems, less good at language and coding. I didn't really want to test language or coding or mathematics or science. I wanted to test reasoning. I wanted to test logic. And so I came up with a detective scenario. I actually gave a short synopsis of a murder mystery problem to both OpenAI's O1 preview model and also DeepSeek. And I wanted to see, with the exact same scenario, what they would do. And I noticed a couple of things. One, even though everyone is saying that DeepSeek is able to use that additional time it takes to respond to give a better answer, that was not true when it wasn't being tested with a scientific or mathematical question. This was just a pure logic puzzle with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of ambiguity and conflicting evidence thrown in to make it difficult. And so really, I was trying to measure whether the system could sort through all of that conflicting evidence, come back with a logical response. And at the end of the day, when I compared the two, O1's response was a lot better. O1 came back and it had tightly argued logical reasoning for the choices that it had made. It had clearly examined all of the evidence I had given it in the murder mystery prompt. It had thought about it, it had put it together, and it just came back with a really rational response. DeepSeek came back, it named a different murder suspect, it spit out all of the reasoning tokens. So I was just sitting there looking at gray text coming down the screen. And when it gave its response, it wasn't as logical. It could not logically articulate the reason why it had made the choices it had made with the same degree of coherence that O1 brought. And if I were to go into like the whole murder mystery and the whole response, it would take a long time, longer than you want to spend on this YouTube channel. So I'm summarizing for you. But I want to call it out because I think we need better evals for these kinds of claims. Like if we are going to claim that the scaling law holds for inference time, we need to have evals that are outside standard knowledge domains. We need to not just say, here's the Riemann hypothesis, or here's a physics problem, and also, can you remember Dostoevsky and write a story like Dostoevsky? Like those are one way to measure intelligence, but I wanted to look at something that actually measures novel intelligence and reasoning ability across a new problem. So the problem I gave it was not a murder mystery from books. It was actually a net new murder problem scenario. And when I look at all of that, it just reminds me that if we're going to make claims about how inference compute works, we need to be making equivalent commitments to inference time evals. And if we're not, we're really not in a position to correctly compare a bunch of models that come out. So that's my thought. I was not super impressed with DeepSeek from that test. I realize it's only one. I'm not saying that the people who are testing math and science problems are incorrect when they're saying it's great at it. It probably is. Every model has its pros and cons. But in this particular case, I felt like if you were testing just reasoning, O1 clearly came out ahead. So give DeepSeek a try, compare it to O1 Preview, Let me know what you think.